The first thing you notice if you are willing to stand still long enough is that Britain's ancient monuments do not announce themselves. They do not shout. They do not explain. They wait. They wait in fields where sheep move like drifting clouds, on hilltops where the wind never seems to rest, beside quiet rivers that have learned the shape of the land over thousands of years. They wait in silence that feels heavier than sound, as if the ground itself is holding its breath. To walk among them is not like visiting a museum. It is more like entering a conversation already in progress, one that began long before you arrived and will continue long after you leave. Long before the idea of Britain existed, before borders, crowns, or written history, people stood on this same earth and tried to make sense of a world that was vast, dangerous, and full of unseen forces. They did not have books to explain the sky or instruments to measure time, but they had eyes, hands, and stories. They watched the sun rise and fall. They noticed how shadows shifted, how the moon pulled at tides and emotions alike. They buried their dead carefully, sometimes with gifts, sometimes with red earth, sometimes with nothing but hope. From these moments of watching and wondering, monuments were born. Stone circles appeared where land and sky seemed to speak to one another. Long barrows stretched like sleeping giants beneath the grass. Standing stones rose from the soil as if pushed upward by the will of the earth itself. These were not built casually. Each stone dragged across miles of land, each mound shaped by human hands, represents time measured not in hours but in lives. Imagine a morning thousands of years ago. The air is sharp with cold and mist lies low across the ground. A small group of people gathers around a stone half buried in earth. They do not see it as an object. To them, it is alive in its own way. It has a presence. It has memory. They believe it connects the world of the living to something older, deeper, and more powerful. When they lift that stone upright, they are not just changing the landscape, they are marking meaning onto it. This is one of the hidden secrets of Britain's ancient monuments. They were never meant to be looked at alone. They were meant to be experienced through movement, ritual, sound, and time. Many align with the sun on solstices or equinoxes, catching the light at precise moments of the year. Others face rivers, mountains, or distant horizons, tying human life to the wider rhythms of nature. What survives today is only a fragment of the original experience. At Stonehenge, perhaps the most famous of them all, tourists come and go, cameras raised, feet crunching on gravel. But if you could strip away the modern noise, you might hear something else. The low chant of voices, the thud of drums made from stretched skin, the crackle of fire reflecting off pale stone. The monument was not just a calendar or a temple, it was a gathering place where stories were told, alliances formed, and grief shared. Bones found nearby tell of people who traveled great distances to be there. Some came injured or ill, possibly seeking healing. Others may have come to mark death, birth, or transformation. Stonehenge was not isolated. It was part of a wider sacred landscape connected by paths, rivers, and belief. And yet, for all its fame, Stonehenge keeps its secrets well. No one truly knows why those stones were arranged exactly as they were, or why that place mattered so deeply. Every theory is an echo, not a final answer. Elsewhere, far from crowds, other monuments keep quieter watch. On windswept moors, standing stones rise alone, their surfaces worn smooth by centuries of rain. Locals once whispered that they moved at night, or that counting them would bring misfortune. Such stories were not childish fantasies. They were ways of protecting places that felt powerful, places where people sensed that something lingered just beyond sight. Burial mounds dot the countryside like gentle swells in the land. Many were opened long ago by antiquarians or treasure seekers, their contents scattered or lost. But even emptied, these mounds carry weight. They were built as houses for the dead, places where ancestors could rest and watch over the living. To walk across them is to tread on layered memories. Some monuments were altered again and again over centuries. A stone circle might begin as a simple ring, then gain additional stones generations later. A barrow might be opened to bury someone new, linking the present to the distant past. Time was not seen as a straight line, but as a circle, always returning. Then came new beliefs, new gods, new rulers. When the Romans arrived, they brought roads, cities, and written records. They also brought their own sacred places, often built near older ones. Temples rose beside springs already considered holy. Altars were placed where ancient paths crossed. Rather than erase the old beliefs entirely, the Romans sometimes absorbed them, giving local gods new names and forms. Later still, Christianity spread across the land, carrying crosses in churches. Yet even then, ancient monuments were not abandoned. Churches were built near standing stones, holy wells were blessed and renamed, old festivals aligned with new religious calendars. The past was never fully erased, it was folded into what came next. This layering is another hidden secret. Britain's ancient monuments are not frozen in one moment in time. They are palimpsests, written over again and again by different cultures, each leaving traces of belief, fear, and hope. In some places, legends grew thick around stone and earth. A long barrow might be called the home of a giant. A stone circle might be said to be dancers turned to stone for breaking a sacred rule. These stories carried warnings, but also respect. They reminded people that certain places were not ordinary ground. Even in more recent centuries, monuments influenced lives in subtle ways. Farmers plowed around stones rather than remove them. Roads bent slightly to avoid ancient mounds. Children dared one another to touch certain rocks at dusk, hearts pounding with fear and excitement. There is something deeply human in this response. Even when we no longer know the original meaning of a monument, we feel that it matters. Modern archaeology has revealed much, but it has also shown how much we do not know. Tools, pottery, and bones can tell us how people lived and died, what they ate, how they moved, but they cannot fully capture belief. They cannot explain why a certain hill felt sacred or why one stone was chosen over another. Science gives us dates and diagrams. The land gives us atmosphere. Stand at an ancient site at dawn when the world feels new and fragile, and you may sense why these places endure. The light changes everything. Shadows stretch, birds call. The stones seem to wake slowly, as if remembering all the mornings they have seen before. In those moments, the boundary between past and present thins. Perhaps the greatest secret of Britain's ancient monuments is that they were never meant to be solved like puzzles. They were meant to be lived with, returned to, and felt. Their power lies not in clear answers, but in questions that refuse to fade. Who were we before history named us? What did we fear? What did we love enough to move mountains of earth and stone? Every monument is a reminder that humans have always sought connection to the land, to the sky, to one another, and to something beyond explanation. In an age of speed and screens, these silent structures ask us to slow down, to listen, to remember that we are not the first to stand here wondering. They have survived ice ages, invasions, plagues, and empires. They will likely survive us too. And perhaps that is the most humbling secret of all.